The already bad situation in Gaza is getting worse as the war in Iran rages on. The humanitarian crisis is deepening and efforts to enforce the US brokered ceasefire have been put on hold. So is the world ignoring Gaza, and how's that benefiting Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu? This is Inside Story. Hello again, I'm James Bays. Until late last month, the US said its ambitious plans to rebuild Gaza were on track. After 2 years of Israel's devastating war on the Strip, the Rafah border crossing had partially reopened, limited food aid was allowed in, and a small number of people were able to come in and out of Gaza. But all of that came to a halt when the US and Israel launched their attack on Iran last month, shifting the world's focus away from Gaza. So what's it all mean for the Palestinians who still badly need more aid? And where does it leave diplomatic efforts to maintain a shaky ceasefire? We'll talk to our panel of guests in a moment. First, this report from Ferdy Akar.
With the US-Israeli war on Iran into its second week, the world's attention is shifting away from the devastation in Gaza. President Trump's ceasefire plan, which aims to demilitarize the Strip, formally entered its second phase in January, but progress has stalled.
I think we have to smile. A lot of good things.
Trump told the first meeting of his Board of Peace on February 19th that the war in Gaza is over. Hopes that the ceasefire would advance and the process of rebuilding Gaza might begin after more than 2 years of Israel's war grew after Trump's son-in-law, Jared Kushner, unveiled plans for the Strip's future.
Here to help the people of Gaza, to lift them up and give them every opportunity to succeed. And we really see this as a partnership with them and with the Israelis to see if we can create an environment that can be peaceful, that can be functional, that can offer people the opportunity to really live a better life.
He outlined a reconstruction timetable of several years. Palestinians in the battered Strip fear they have been forgotten.
We were very hopeful that the Board of Peace would rebuild our houses so we could return to our homes and our original lands. But after the Board of Peace stopped, it's all in vain. Who will rebuild for us?
Israel's strikes in Gaza continue unabated, while imposing limits on aid deliveries despite the ceasefire agreement. Humanitarian relief is only allowed through the Karam Abu Salam crossing, a decision Israel began implementing hours after launching its attacks on Iran. Supply lines have been disrupted, leading to shortages and rising food prices across the Strip. Earlier this month, the UN Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs said between the announcement of the ceasefire in October and March the 5th, an average of 2,240 pallets of aid a day were delivered to Gaza. However, that number has significantly decreased. In the final week of that period, only 485 pallets a day made it into Gaza.
Nearly all humanitarian movements to the Karam Abu Salam crossings were denied. Only one was allowed through. As a result, we have been able to collect fuel, but nothing else.
Palestinians are also being blocked from leaving Gaza through the Rafah crossing. As a result, thousands of people in urgent need of medical care are unable to leave. Doctors say medical supplies are also running low. Gaza has been pushed to the margins of the regional conversation. During a meeting with journalists, Oman's Foreign Minister Badr al-Busaidi recently commented on the broader context of the conflict in Iran, saying the real objectives go beyond its nuclear program. He said it aims to weaken Iran, reshape the region, advance normalization with Israel, prevent the creation of a Palestinian state, and weaken those who support it. Gaza is the place where this regional cycle began, and it remains the place where neglect is most likely to produce the next round of instability. Ferdy Akar, Al Jazeera for Inside Story.
Let's discuss all of this further with our guests who are joining us today for Inside Story. And joining me in the studio, Abdulla Etaibi, Assistant Professor in Political Science at Qatar University. In Gaza, in Deir al-Balah, Mohammed Salah, founder of the NGO Tech from Palestine. And in Washington, D.C., Gordon Gray, a former US ambassador and Deputy Assistant Secretary of State for Near Eastern Affairs. Let me start in Gaza, because our programme is all about Gaza today. Mohammed, very briefly, and we'll talk in much more detail throughout the discussion, but how would you describe the living conditions for people in Gaza right now?
Okay, actually, the living conditions in Gaza at the current timing is actually harder than it was previously, because due to the Iranian war, the crossing borders just got closed, and the supplies it's been entering is a lot limited, and it's not as it was previously. So all the prices for the supplies has got just skyrocketed, and it has doubled or more than one doubled. And the problem is that the people before the Iranian war was facing a big problem affording money to buy those supplies, because the unemployment rate is so high the current timing. So now, after the Iranian war and after the prices just got doubled and skyrocketing, the people are facing more obstacles to buy supplies after this prices.
Abdulla, I mean, even if we look before what has happened, and they've closed these crossings, one of them now reopened, but even before what happened and the war, there wasn't enough food getting into Gaza. The UN's humanitarian arm said in February, partners reached approximately 1.2 million people with reduced rations that covered only 50% of basic calorie needs for those people.
I mean, yeah, it's a big tragedy when you look at Gaza, especially after the Gaza deal in Sharm el-Sheikh in October that was mediated by Qatar, Egypt, and the US, Turkey as well. There was so much hope in the region that this could bring some hope and lights to the lives of Gazans people. But we didn't see that. There was a problem. One of the basic things was the crossing borders. There was like 600 vehicles based on the deal to cross Gaza every single day. But we saw even they haven't even crossed 120 vehicles per day. Then this is actually didn't bring much aid that's needed for the people of Gaza, and this could just put a lot of people's lives at risk. And even now with the conflicts taking place in Iran, this makes things even more complicated. How I see, James, the Middle East right now, I think it stands between escalation or diplomacy. And I think the wider, like the regional countries here, including Qatar, the key mediator in Gaza, I think they are trying and pushing so hard to save the region from a wider conflicts by basically defending their sovereignty, and also at the same time trying to keep channels open with Iran to put an end to Iranian attacks and to the conflict, to bring back the main focus, which is Gaza.
Gordon in Washington, D.C., the last time I interviewed you was a long time ago in Tunisia when you were the US ambassador there. It was during the so-called Arab Spring, the very beginning of the so-called Arab Spring, a time of great change in the region. I think you probably agree we're in another time potentially of great change in the region. And the problem right now is Gaza is getting forgotten, is it not?
I remember that interview well. It was just a few days after Ben Ali fled Tunisia. Yes, as you point out, sadly, the situation in Gaza is being overlooked given the understandable attention now being paid to the war further east. This is regrettable for the humanitarian reasons that we just heard about. And I would also say it probably suits Prime Minister Netanyahu's domestic political agenda, because the more he can have Israeli voters focus on Iran and the less he can have them focus on what happened on October 7th, the better his electoral prospects will likely be.
Mohammed, I mean, we talk about since the ceasefire, which was back in October last year. But, I mean, there are some who question whether there ever really was a proper ceasefire, because you've had daily attacks from Israel. You've got more than half of the Gaza Strip still under Israeli control. And you've never had what you were promised, which is unhindered aid coming in, have you?
That's right. That's 100% right. There's a lot of the things that have been agreed in both sides that it is actually haven't happened, sadly, in more than one side. Yes.
Yeah, and one of the other things now with this, the Israelis closing most of the crossings, is that for a very brief window in February, you had the ability for people who were desperately ill to be evacuated from Gaza. That's now ended, has it not?
Yes, yes. Actually, before the Iranian war, the people who got evacuated from Gaza, who are injured, is actually so limited, and now because of the Iranian war, is more limited than it was previously. That's 100% right.
Abdullah, the other thing that we've seen since the beginning of the year is those who are working in Gaza, NGOs, have faced new restrictions. The Israelis want actually to stop some of these NGOs operating, and they're only operating temporarily at the moment because the Supreme Court has issued a temporary order. So there could be even more problems for the people of Gaza coming.
100%, especially when we talk about the major focus of the world shifted to Iran. So less focus now, less spotlight on Gaza. This makes people of Gaza in a worse situation, and put the NGOs in a worse situation as well, because we know that lots of NGOs operating in Gaza, they are with food, with regard to food, with regard to having medical support as well, which is very much needed in Gaza due to the conflict. So for them to find less support, for them to have more harsh response from Israel, they taking advantage of what's happening regionally. This is not good, and this is not shouldn't happen, because this is the major issue of the region here. It's Palestine, and the major issue of the issue here in the region, it's always Gaza, and should always be the focus of people to bring peace and prosperity to Gazan people.
Gordon, there is a Trump plan for Gaza. We'll discuss in a minute the details of it, because it doesn't seem to be going anywhere. But let me start with this, which is the Trump administration itself. One of the problems, I suspect, you would agree, in the Trump administration is power is concentrated in very few hands. In the end, the president makes all the decisions, but key decisions are delegated to only a few people. Gaza is in the hands of Steve Witkoff, the president's friend, and Jared Kushner, his son-in-law. The problem is they are also in charge of Ukraine, and the real problem right now is they're also in charge of Iran.
You're absolutely right. This has been the one of the weak points of Trump 2.0 foreign policy. It's certainly the president's constitutional right, and in fact his responsibility, to ultimately make the decisions. In past administrations, even including Trump 1.0, though, many decisions were considered at the working level and advanced up with informed input from all the agencies and from experts who knew the issues very well. Now we're seeing, as you've pointed out, a complete reversal of that, and we've got too much responsibility, just in terms of bandwidth, in the hands of two people.
Those two people, Mohammed, have a plan. They've made it quite clear. It's endorsed in a UN Security Council resolution. And my understanding is Gaza is supposed to be, now we're in phase 2 of this plan, supposedly, run by something called the National Committee for the Administration of Gaza. Any sign of your national committee on the ground there in Gaza?
Actually, in my front, there's maybe it is there's signs of it, but actually it's not. I can't see there's any progress on the ground in the real world. We still see that there's a lot of stuff happening. It's still unarranged 100% in Gaza, and there's a lot of problems that we are facing that these people should be handling this issue, but we're not currently seeing any progress happening at Gaza currently.
So, what do young people like you make of this supposed Trump plan? I mean, are you patient, or do you really think it's going nowhere?
Actually, in my perspective, I see it as going nowhere.
Abdulla, this National Committee for the Administration of Gaza, they have been appointed. They have rather a flashy website, I found it today, but they're in Cairo. Is it clear to you why they have not gone to Gaza?
Well, it's not quite clear why. It seems to be some practical maybe problems they're facing of relocating to or moving to Gaza. Could be the Israelis as well, because you need to have the Israelis' approval first to move inside, since they are keeping Gaza under siege at the moment. And also there is the Egyptian-Israeli coordination, which is important. So I think this could be one of the next round of discussions in the Board of Peace. However, the conflict in Iran just stopping everything. And I'm currently, to be honest with you, James, I'm worried about the exhaustion of parties involved in the Board of Peace. We talk about Trump's plan has $17 billion, and we talk about $7 billion is coming mainly from the GCC countries, and $10 billion is coming from the US. But at the same time, the US is being exhausted at the war at the moment with almost nearly $1 billion per day, which is quite crazy. So this exhaustion could bring a lot of consequences on Gaza as well.
You mentioned those GCC countries, the countries of this region, of the Gulf. They, as you say, have pledged $7 billion so far, but I think the Trump administration is going to ask them, or the plan was to ask them to put forward even more money to rebuild Gaza. Do you think they are in a position right now to consider that?
At the moment, I think the whole region desperately needs peace and needs stability in regionally, and Gaza is one of the issues on the list that deserves to have peace and prosperity as well. I think the Gulf Cooperation Council countries, they are in talk with the US for definitely there will be talks for Gaza. But at the moment, when you have a conflict that's actually at your doorstep, it's very hard to focus on other cases. We see a wider scope of attacks now in the region. This puts the GCC countries in check, where they're trying to find a way to stop these attacks, and they are trying to coordinate some of their efforts together. So I think it would be very difficult to focus on Gaza at the moment, but definitely the plan, I think 17 billion will not work. It will need more and more for sure, especially after the Iran war.
So, Gordon, you have this Palestinian National Committee that's supposed to be in place. You also are supposed to have an international force in place, headed by a US Major General, Jasper Jeffers, but with a number of other countries, and the ones that were mentioned were Indonesia, Morocco, Kazakhstan, Kosovo and Albania. Indonesia was going to be the big player. It got the job, we were told, of the deputy commander for the force. It was supposed to provide 20,000 troops for this force. Just a few days ago, its defence minister said, well, no, it'll be 8,000 now. This is all falling apart, is it not?
The 20,000 troop figure came from Major General Jasper Jenners. The Indonesians had pledged 8,000 of those. 8,000 of those troops is the figure that I had seen. But I think it's worth pointing out that even 20,000 troops may not be sufficient to do the job. The reason I say that is Kosovo in 1999 had approximately the same population as Gaza does today, And the NATO force, KFOR as it was called, that kept the peace in Kosovo consisted of over 50,000. Those were 50,000 troops who had trained together, who had interoperability. That's a far cry from even the 20,000 troops hoped for, much less the 8,000 troops pledged.
And Gordon, the main job of this force is to provide security in Gaza, but right now, Hamas is still there.
Well, that's the problem behind the International Stabilization Force. One of the key pillars and one of the key assumptions of the Trump 20-point peace plan is the demilitarization of Hamas. They're not going to give up their weapons by force, and the International Stabilization Force is not going to take their weapons away. The Indonesians have made that very clear. So the question is, who is going to invest in Gaza if Hamas is still armed?
Mohammed, I mean, when you hear about what, and I don't know how much you're able to see of what is happening in Iran and Lebanon, what do you make of what is going on there? And do you see some of the things that happened in Gaza being repeated?
Yes, actually. I can see that the conflict that happened in Gaza and the war we faced, there's a lot of things that's been repeated to Lebanon and Iran and all of those stuff.
And what do you make of the fact that the man who was in charge of the operation, ultimately in Gaza, Benjamin Netanyahu, has an arrest warrant from the International Criminal Court, and now he is prosecuting two simultaneous new wars, one in Lebanon, one in Iran, and there doesn't seem to be an outcry from the international community that he's doing that.
Yes, that's actually one of the most things that we have to take a look at, because he's never been held accountable for what he's done. He's always doing massacres and bombing and okay, it is now Lebanon and Iran the first places, but it will expand and make the project for the Great Israel. So this is the problem. This is not a question of the repetition for the Lebanon and Iran. In the future, it will be repetition for all the Arab countries. Because of that, I'm always believing that this is the right time for all the Arabs to reunite again and be together, to be one power, because everyone's turn is going to come. And we all know that Israel itself and United States is following the Israeli agendas, and they always serving their interests, the United States and Israeli. So we as an Arab, we only have ourselves to look at ourselves, to look at our interests, to be together, to be stronger, so we can reunite again and be one power together.
Abdulla, how is this seen in the Gulf? Because here, countries, and we're in Qatar right now, we hear the bangs, we get the warnings on our phones, but at the same time, you see what has been done in Lebanon and Iran, and you see forced expulsion orders, you see the bombing of civilian areas and civilian infrastructure. Some of those seem very similar to what happened in Gaza.
It's quite concerning what we're witnessing in the region at the moment. The scope and the scale of destruction in Gaza is outrageous, basically. And now we see more Israeli military operations in Lebanon, and also taking bigger steps to go even to Iran, is actually putting the whole region at risk, especially with the reaction of the Iranians of trying to attack countries that are not part of this world, and countries that actually worked very hard to prevent the war from the beginning. Because what we need in the region, we need more diplomacy and less of escalation and less of military actions. What we see from Israel is more of military actions. We can also remember the Israeli strike in Qatar in September. That was using a military strike, using force against negotiating team. And this is what just shows us that since 2023, there was, since October 7th, there was a scale and diversion of Israeli way of dealing with the region and moving more into force than any other option. And this is, I think, resonate with Netanyahu himself. He tries to change the geography in the region. He mentioned that multiple times. He doesn't like Sykes-Picot anymore, so he wants to change the geography and the lines in the region. Also recently, when he welcomed the Indian Prime Minister, he talked about the alignments. It was his way of reading the region. He believes that the region is shaping up in a way that there is Iran team, and there is the Sunni team, and there is Israeli team. So he's trying to push the region for more of these alliance building in order to include more countries maybe on the Israeli team.
And it's not just Abdullah who's saying that, Gordon. That has been said by the man who was the mediator. The Oman foreign minister had some recent comments when he said the goal, he believes, of the military operation by Israel and the US is not just the nuclear issue. Part of it is to prevent the creation of a Palestinian state and weaken those who support that project. Do you share that assessment?
I don't share that assessment as far as it being a U.S. goal. The sad truth of the matter is that it's not at all clear what the U.S. strategic objective is in prosecuting this war against Iran. President Trump has offered a variety of reasons, some self-contradictory. One day it's the nuclear file, even though in June of last year he said the Iranian nuclear facilities were obliterated, quote unquote. Another day it's to protect the protesters, even though the protests were brutally suppressed by the regime in January. Another day, it's a more limited option of objective of sinking the Iranian Navy. So it's ever shifting and menu of rationales.
Okay, Gordon.
None of which have
Gordon, thank you.
Convinced the United States people.
Gordon, thank you very much. Gordon Gray and Abdulla Etaibi and Mohammed Salah, our guests on Inside Story. Much of the world's attention may have moved on from Gaza, but coverage of what happens there is still a priority for Al Jazeera, with regular reports from our teams on the ground and further analysis on our website, aljazeera.com. As ever, we'd like to hear what you think. Go to our Facebook page. That's facebook.com/AJ Inside Story, or post your comments on X. There we are, at AJ Inside Story. I'll be back here again very soon. Until next time, from me, James Bays, and all the team, stay safe and well. Bye-bye for now.